All eyes on America tonight as votes are being counted in a decisive midterm election that could change the direction of that country. This is a live look out of Washington, D.C. this hour. According to early exit poll data, top concerns for voters include inflation, gas prices, and abortion policies. The results of these elections will decide who will control Congress for the next 2 years. Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, not a surprise, has won re-election to a second term, bolstering his rise as a prominent GOP star with potential White House ambitions. DeSantis had framed his candidacy as a battle against the, quote, woke agenda of liberals. He defeated former Republican Governor Charlie Crist, who ran as a Democrat. Republican Senator Marco Rubio has won a third term in Florida, defeating Val Demings. Rubio ran a campaign from the Republican playbook, tying Demings to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and President Joe Biden and hammering her on issues like spending, rising inflation, and a crisis at the southern border. Democrat Wes Moore has made history in Maryland tonight as that state's first black governor. His victory flips a governor's office from Republican to Democrat, so that is significant. It was considered one of the best chances for Democrats to regain a governor's office, and President Joe Biden attended a rally with Moore on the eve of the election. So, as results continue to pour in, let's turn to someone who's watching the numbers and storylines very closely tonight. John Micek is a political analyst and editor at Pennsylvania Capital Star, and he joins us live. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, John.
Hi, Lena. How are you?
Good, good. I know you're watching very closely. A handful of key races to watch tonight. Walk us through some of them, including in your home state of Pennsylvania. Let's start there.
Sure enough, we are still sitting here waiting for results to roll in Pennsylvania, Lena, in that very high-profile U.S. Senate race between Democratic Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and the Trump-endorsed celebrity physician Mehmet Oz. We're still getting that race remains too close to call. We're seeing mail-in ballots rolling in there. Those typically favor Democrats, while the in-person voting favors John Fetterman. The polling on this has been neck and neck heading into the race's final days. And because of Pennsylvania's mail-in balloting laws, we may not know a winner by the time we go to bed here. Other key U.S. Senate races are also on the bubble in Georgia, Ohio, and Arizona, so we're watching those very closely as well.
Absolutely. You talked about this. I want to pick up on that. We do have to point out that in some states, it could take days to count all the ballots. So there is still a long way to go here, right?
That's exactly right. In Pennsylvania, for instance, county elections officers could not start processing absentee and mail-in ballots until 8 p.m. Eastern time when the polls closed. There was something like 1.4 million applications for absentee ballots, Lena, and so they can't start counting those until this evening at the very earliest. Some counties had received financial incentives to count those ballots faster, but either way, it could be Thursday or perhaps even into Monday before we have winners declared here in Pennsylvania, at least.
Okay. Everyone expects the House to go to the Republicans. The Democrats have almost accepted defeat there as well. But a lot of people are watching to see who takes the Senate. That's the big storyline tonight. I know it's still early, but based on what you're seeing, how are you feeling about which way this could go?
It is a 50-50 Senate, and it is 50-50 odds. As we were seeing the last bit of reporting, Lena, that I'd seen, it was 41-40 to Republicans with 19 Senate seats still in play. And again, some of those key races I was talking about a couple of minutes ago in Georgia between Democratic U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock and the former football star Herschel Walker, still too close to call. In Ohio between Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance, who has the backing of former President Donald Trump, still too close to call. A lot of pivotal races in Arizona, Senator Mark Kelly, that we're still waiting for results on that could determine the balance of power in the upper chamber in the next session of Congress.
Yeah, it's really going going back and forth in a number of states. Georgia is a really tight one to watch for tonight as well. You talked about that. Now, there are a number of Republican candidates who are election deniers. Some running have promoted conspiracies around the 2020 election. Others even have connections to QAnon. How are they doing tonight? And what happens if some of these people are elected? And I know some of them have been elected tonight.
Sure. Lena, we have one of those right here in Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano, the Republican candidate for governor, who has trafficked in false claims of election fraud, who was at the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th, who has tied himself to QAnon and sort of cloaked himself with Christian nationalism without ever specifically embracing it. We're watching him very closely this evening. That campaign has already hung a lantern, so to speak, that it may question the legitimacy of the results here a little bit later on this evening. And there are Republicans up and down the ballot across the country who'll be reading from a similar playbook. One of the disadvantages in some of these states where it's taking longer for ballots to be counted, even though that's just because of mechanical stuff and not because something nefarious is happening, that opens the doors to these kind of conspiracy theories about claims of fraud. But elections officials in states where that's happening have been quick to stress the voters need to remain calm, that they need to remain patient, and that the process will play out as it should.
It's been interesting listening to Democrats and listening to Republicans, two very different messages. Democrats, including Joe Biden, talking about the fact that they believe democracy is at risk. Republicans appealing to the wallets of Americans, talking about inflation. What do you think is on the ballot, and what is at stake here?
I was down in Philadelphia on Saturday when President Biden and former President Barack Obama rallied for Democratic candidates down there. And President Obama, in a speech that's now made headlines kind of around the world, gave this extraordinary speech about what is on the ballot today. Pardon me. He talked about decency. He talked about truth. He talked about fact. He talked about the fabric of democracy. It was quite stirring and kind of reminiscent of his debut speech 2004 in Boston that moved a lot of people. If you look at the polling, economy remains top of mind for a lot of voters, and Republicans have really homed in on that. Democrats have tried to tie the battle over abortion access to economic issues, arguing that's not either or, but a both and. That every choice that a pregnant person makes, from whether to start a family, stay in a job, or to make decisions about their future, is in fact is tied to economics. That the ability to choose when to have a child is an economic decision in as much as it is a personal decision. So they've really homed in on that message as well.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Political analyst John Micek joining us live from Pennsylvania tonight. Thank you so much for your time, John. We so appreciate this.
You bet. Thank you.